Heavy Rain is probably the game that I have the most pure, unfiltered, and unbridled hatred for of any I've ever played. And no, it isn't a game I was excited for, nor is it a game I even had expectations for, but that proves my hate for this game correct on an even larger scale. The first thing that's absolutely ridiculous is the control scheme. And no, it isn't complex actions or QuickTime events that are my problem. It is the very principle, the fundamental and important thing of moving. I don't know how a game can make walking a complete chore, but this game does do so. In order to move, you don't just move the stick, but rather must hold R2 and steer yourself with the stick. This is painful, annoying, and while some people may laud it as unique, it just makes everything so much more cumbersome. And I also do dislike the QuickTime events. Now, I'm not using the pea-brained logic of this guy, but I'm not going to look past it either. The QTEs are way too plenty. They are required for everything. This is not inherently awful, since I really like Detroit Become Human, and that game does the same thing. But in Heavy Rain, you aren't scanning stuff, hacking things, stealthing your way around, and lead revolutions. No! In Heavy Rain, you are setting dishes and doing housework. But that's only the first chapter, you may say. Well, here's the thing, this is continued for much longer than it should be, and even the most interesting parts of the game are surrounded by boring crap, along with awkward animation and awful acting that downplay any serious tone. Also, the title screen looks extremely cheap. Just a note that, stuck out to me. The majority of the first chapter is watching the first main character, Ethan, walk around his house and do chores. You are also forced to watch him take a shower in a scene that I need to censor. You get to watch him do some fun stuff, but the fact that this main theme is playing over everything takes away any charm or humor, and the theme just sounds sad overall, so it should be reserved for more sentimental moments, right? No, the game just decides to play it whenever it's on screen. This makes the whole game feel depressing, but at the same time makes the moments the game wants to make you feel sad with like any other part of the game. This is a minor detail that derails the whole plot. You also have to choose your favorite child in the chapter. Not to mention, the music very often is so loud, you can't hear what the characters say. You really don't require subtitles in a game made by a huge company like this. But the last noteworthy thing from the beginning is the scene where Ethan and his wife peck out each other's faces. This is some of the worst CGI animation I've ever seen. Movies that came out a decade earlier look 1,000 times better. And yes, while movies are easier to put CGI into, this still could look way better considering the budget. Next up is the Jason scene. And yeah, spoilers for most of the rest of the video, but I still recommend watching because I don't think you should ever want to play this game after you're done watching this review. I know this scene is low-hanging fruit for those wishing to pick on the game, but it really is awful. The idea of mashing buttons to call for his child's name is cringy enough, but add that the fact that he does not run after Jason, and the horrible and robotic tone of the line delivery here, and yeah, it just sucks. I'm sorry to those who like the game, but I just simply don't agree. The scene does get somewhat frantic, but this glitch in the background, along with how Ethan's wife blamed him for Jason getting lost, made me sort of lose faith that this scene would make me feel anything. The fact that Ethan wasn't killed and yet Jason was makes no sense at all to me, to be honest, and the mother of Jason screaming is very poorly acted. However, the shot of Sean seeing his brother dead did actually give me quite a little bit of a shiver, so credit where credit is due. And then the next parts consist to mostly leading to Sean, which just isn't fun. At least in Detroit Become Human, once you start playing as Kara, things get amazing and remain good throughout, but here boring gameplay reigns supreme. I also started to notice an awful film grain that you can't turn off. This is really where the control problems shine. And navigating through narrow rooms in the house becomes a tedious and painstaking journey because of it. Once again, the gameplay is just boring. Don't believe me? Well then, take a look at a comparison between this game, which is in the greatest minds of Metacritic users think is worthy of nearly 4 out of 5 points, and a game that they think is around 2 out of 5.
Heads up!
Oh, no, they got her cornered. Oh no. Oh no. Oh crap. Oh my god.
Checking right now.
Holy. Oh my.
Side. Maybe I could squeeze in a little garden time.
Was that line even delivered by a human? Oh my! Oh no! Oh what? Oh my! What the hell?
Jason! 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 Jason!
Get him! Kill him! Oh, what? What? Oh my god! No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Oh my god! Well, sorry guys. I guess I was wrong. I guess Last of Us 2 sucks and Heaven is amazing.
He's dead and it's all my fault.
Also, choose between chicken and pizza, making for the hardest narrative choice made only by you, only in Heavy Rain. Also, they've the need to play sad music over Ethan watching Sean eat dinner. Yeah, make sure to get cinematic shots of his son chopping down chicken. I actually do like the idea of seeing Sean grow up with his parents divorced, because maybe we could eventually play as him not knowing who he is because he's an adult, until a big and emotional reveal, but no. It's not really used creatively other than Ethan's wife blaming Ethan for everything, although I wouldn't really call that creative. Also, I love how the same lines are repeated over and over again. Yeah, Sean, we get it, you're not tired, okay? The game also doesn't know how to spell pajamas. The game also tried to make the player feel sad about Jason's death by showing Sean's drawings of the incident. Yeah, but I already saw Jason die in 10 movies, so I don't really feel anything. The thing is, we don't really see any suffering from the death of Jason, and the emotional torment of the family that was there was so badly acted that I didn't feel any sadness. Detroit Become Human made me cry multiple times, and while the parts that I did cry at involved a child, they didn't even need to resort to killing them. Honest, death is awful, but there are many things more saddening than it in the context of a story. Also, I just don't like Ethan. Even as a more boring father character, I don't like him. Take, for example, Kratos and Joel. Both of these characters have great relationships with who they are watching over, and Joel is very well written in his character, as well as his charm and jokes. Kratos, on the other hand, exhibits irony, at the same time a very realistic want to love Atreus while still being strict. Ethan, on the other hand, is just the most robotic, boring, and lazily written parent character I've seen in a video game. There is, on the other hand, a chapter that I actually like. This chapter starts off with solid acting and ends with a very good and exciting action scene. Scott Shelby is introduced with a fun QTE segment and interrogation beforehand, which is really what convinced me to keep playing the game. Also, Scott has an asthma attack right before the villain begins the fight scene. Isn't it convenient that 2 characters in a row have had health issues after leaving a room? Some may call it good character paralleling, but we'll have to see if they follow up on it and maintain this throughout. If more game has stuff like this, I'd confidently give it a 2.5 out of 5 at least, because it would make the gameplay much more interesting. Sadly though, the next chunk of the game is just boring and fun. After the uninteresting Ethan and the bland but well-played Scott, I was hoping the next character would be great and blow my expectations out of the water. Sadly though, I don't care about him at all. Norman is fine at first. He's an FBI agent with a drug problem, high-tech gadgets, and odd facial animations. I really like the idea of this character showing how even those sworn to protect people and solve crimes can themselves be criminals. You have to walk around and trace evidence, but there's no clear path forward for the most part, so it mostly boils down to just walking around a huge piece of land until you eventually find what you're looking for. I would like it if there were cool things to find that brought you to new places, like when you hunt for Jericho in Detroit Become Human. But no, there isn't really anything like that. The game, especially parts with Norman, follows the Origami Killer more than anybody else, which is interesting. The fact, however, that the main characters themselves are not interesting, and the fact that the Origami Killer's identity is not revealed until the end, and the plot feels lost. Compare this to Infinity War. In Infinity War, almost every hero is interesting and well written, but so is Thanos. Thanos also has a moral complexity to him, whereas Heavy Rain only has the interesting prospect of the killer, rather than a philosophically challenging character. This is why the story does not feel satisfying or interesting, and since the game relies so heavily on narrative, this hurts the game massively. Compare this to The Last of Us 2 if you want a game comparison instead. In The Last of Us 2, Abby is to many the villain, but is still treated as a real person, and every other character is also well written. Now I hear so many Heavy Rain fans saying that there is action in this scene, because you climb a muddy slope. This isn't action. You may call me a hypocrite because something similar does happen in Detroit. There you are crawling out of the equivalent of android hell as you witness the disgusting prospect of death. Here you're just pressing buttons to climb a hill. The part with Ethan visiting his psychologist does a fine job of moving the plot forward, but all that momentum is killed right after. Detroit did a great job of starting out slow and ramping up gradually, and when momentum was slowed, it was often due to the showcase of the story of another character. In Heavy Rain, momentum is interrupted by the characters' stories. My main problem with this is that none of the characters are interesting to me, and they don't really get any more interesting after major plot events. I really am okay with a realistic and dramatic plot, but to make it interesting it takes way more effort than something more fantastical. Detroit explores realistic experiences with a fantasy issue that is grounded in reality. Androids aren't publicly available yet the fact that it is a growing concern among humanity is what drives a new level of depth in this narrative. And seeing the robots play out in their own stories, which are all interesting and get to the point while still letting you make choices by yourself, is very satisfying. There are only a few chapters in Detroit at the very beginning to introduce characters, along with action scenes throughout to make sure it isn't boring. Then once you get to Stormy Night, everything goes down. Each of the stories become incredibly captivating from that point forward. While in Heavy Rain, I didn't give two craps about any of the robotic, lifeless characters with pathetically poor acting. For a second, though, they actually got me smiling with the character relationship between Sean and Ethan, but that was plunged back into a cold reality by bad voice acting and the realization that what I was doing was extremely boring. I was also incredibly annoyed at the fact that even after Ethan did everything to make Sean happy, he still brought up Jason and how sad he is. Does this kid have any realism to his character emotions? Ethan blacks out again and Sean is lost, and we have another run around and shout a character's name button. This time the music and voice acting is better, but Ethan's voice here does not at all sound like how he does in the rest of the game. Also, the game congratulated me on a new bonus after this scene, which was kind of ironic. I do like the idea of Ethan being disturbed by the simple fact of finding an origami in his hand. Then a segment with Norman using his high-tech gadgets goes on for way too long. And then the game tries to claim victims of the origami killer disappear in broad daylight and aren't found for days. I really doubt that, honestly. Then there's a smooth transition to Ethan and the point in which where he wonders if his son has been taken by the origami killer, and the point where his wife says something that she completely regrets would both be impactful, but again, the poor animation makes it quite funny to me. Then Scott Shelby comes back, and I thought there'd be another awesome action scene, and I was somewhat right. There's no fighting, but there's a standoff with a gun and another shorter interrogation. The scene is set with things that'll give your location away, so sneaking around the gunman is harder. I do like this scene, though I find it kinda sus that Scott Shelby knows about Sean, knows the parents of all origami killer's victims, and refuses to be picked up by an ambulance after being shot. I'm not saying he's the killer, but I'm feeling he's hiding something. Maybe that's being the killer, or not. Who knows? We get introduced to the final character I played as before quitting the game, who I don't really know the name of. I walked around aimlessly until I finally found out you're supposed to go on your computer or something and open the fridge and do all these random things that I didn't really care about. I did decide to play a little bit further than last time and realized that there is a short QTE action segment here. You're fighting robbers, but the fact that these QTEs are really easy, even on the hard difficulty, made me kind of bored. The problem with these action scenes are that they're few and far between, but also that they don't really have unique variations. It's just press buttons to beat up the guy. In Detroit Become Human, you chase through a high-tech factory, investigate a murder at a nightclub, and escape a man with a shotgun only to defeat with an army of deformed androids. Here it's just beating up criminals, which already gets stale after only a few times. Now, at this point I was done. The reason I dug deep into everything here is that I didn't really play more than about half of the game. Maybe it becomes a masterpiece in the back half, but for what I've played so far, it's so abundant with flaws and choices that I cannot see past. Because of the awful controls, limiting design, misused music, drawn-out, boring, or repetitive gameplay, transparent and one-dimensional characters, bad QTEs, easy difficulty, awful animation and voice acting, and a lack of visual appeal, this game will be receiving a 1 out of 5. I honestly hate it. Many fans of the game throw accusations at me of being closed-minded, or just not liking this type of game. But because of how much I like Detroit, how I adore other story-driven games, and how I defend others with QTE segments, that is simply false. Thanks to Noah for Life for recommending this video, and thanks to everyone who helped us get to 75 subscribers. This review took a lot of effort, so I hope you guys like it as a replacement for the usual multiple celebratory videos. Thank you all for watching, be safe, and goodbye.